What's going on, Eagles fans? This is your host, Dean Seidman, and I cannot wait to get into another Eagles game recap. Last week we played the Seattle Seahawks, but I saw a lot of the same mistakes versus the New England Patriots. Let's get to it. Now, starting with the offensive side of the ball, like I said, there was a lot of similar mistakes, beginning with the offensive struggles. Before the game even started, Lane Johnson was unable to play, and Brandon Brooks was actually struggling with some anxiety issues, did get sick the morning of, and this is something that he struggles with on a daily basis. And as much as he wanted to play, he was not able to play, which propelled Matt Pryor into the game, as well as Andre Dillard playing right tackle, which he has never played before in his entire career. Now, I had mentioned in my previous game recap that I think Andre Dillard would have been a much better replacement than Vaitai, but here are some situations that I'm going to bring up where I thought Dillard did not do that great. So when it came to planting his foot in the ground and containing outside rushes, he wasn't really good. And you could see in college that, in his system, he was very good at pass blocking, but for some reason, he wasn't able to deal with the NFL pressure, and maybe it's a learning curve, and, we got to bear with him a little bit. But one thing that he said that was really interesting was, it's like writing with your other hand. He said it's not natural, it's something that you got to get used to, and it takes reps and practice. And the transition from left to right tackle was not as easy as we all had thought. So Andre Dillard did struggle early and often, and he was sent to the bench after struggling throughout the entire game. Now, I don't think Vaitai really was the particular guy that should have went in. Maybe, you should have moved Jason Peters. You could have done a number of things, but it was not working. And Carson Wentz was unable to have enough time to make decisions. But let's talk about Carson Wentz for a second. I know we talk about this offensive line and stuff like that, but Carson Wentz, once again, left a lot of plays on the field this game. For example, there was a play very early in the game where he could have hit Miles Sanders in the flat, or on the wheel rather, streaking into the end zone, and he just underthrew him. Now, there was 17-mile-an-hour winds, I believe, but, you're an NFL quarterback. We pay you to do this, and you can't hit somebody 5 yards ahead of you. That was pretty disappointing, and it actually continued to the rest of the game. He was missing throws. He threw a few interceptions, and he also fumbled the ball, but that could be attributed to the offensive line. Bottom line, Carson Wentz played a very sloppy game, and moving forward, we cannot have a performance like that from our all-star quarterback, and hopefully when our guys come back healthy, it'll help him a little bit more. Now, from the wide receiver position, the guys were running routes and stuff, but timing and all of these things take time. Now, timing takes time. I know that sounds redundant, but it's the chemistry. It's practicing these reps throughout practice, and once these guys get familiar with Carson Wentz, it's going to be a lot easier. And a guy like Greg Ward played pretty well, in my opinion. A guy from the practice squad who had a few nice catches and contributed. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside also contributed and did very well and got us up the field. But I felt like there were some things missing, and that lies in the hands of Carson not putting the ball on the money. Now, if we talk about the wide receiver position as a whole, timing, like I said, timing and time. Now, timing does take time. So if we're practicing these reps throughout practice and guys still aren't on the same page when the game comes, on Sunday, then, you have to look the offensive coordinator in the eyes. You have to look Doug Peterson in the eyes. Why? Because these are the guys that are instilling these game plans with Carson Wentz and his supporting cast. And, you got to start pointing fingers at these guys. Because, an 8-yard out route or a 10-yard out route with Carson Wentz and Nelson Aguilar or even Alshon Jeffrey is completely different than an 8 to 10-yard out route with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Greg Ward. And you could see on one of Carson Wentz's interceptions that the ball was outside, and it was practically the wide receiver's fault not completing the route, and it's a timing issue, and I expect that to be fixed in the coming weeks. Now, moving forward, I think our schedule actually plays to our advantage, and I'm going to say that in a sense that the combined records of our remaining opponents is 8-36, and at the end of the day, I feel like the Eagles are their own worst enemy, and as a lot of these games are winnable in my eyes, I feel like it all comes down to the Week 16 game versus the Dallas Cowboys, but we are our own worst enemies at the end of the day. Why? Because our offense's inability to execute and the defense producing all these opportunities, I just don't understand it, and it goes back to what I said last week, complementary football on both sides of the ball. Now, the defense has been playing great as of late, and the past two games rather, limiting Tom Brady and limiting Russell Wilson, but we did give up another trick play, which I don't understand. Whether it's a double move or it's a miscommunication, stuff like that, this defense really has no excuse to give up bogus plays like that. And if we expect to compete and make a playoff run, which I think we can if we don't beat ourselves, then we need to fix these issues on the defensive side of the ball, getting faked by double moves, getting tricked by trick plays. It sounds redundant, but it's the same thing that we saw last week versus New England. So defense needs to continue to play their brand of football and carry this team, but the offense needs to come in and actually do something when they get these opportunities. Now, Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey will be practicing today. Doug Peterson said that in his press conference. And something else that I found super cool was they are going to uptick the snaps for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who actually played one of his best football games on Sunday in an ugly offensive performance. Doug Peterson said today that this week moving forward, we will start J.J. Arcega-Whiteside on the outside, which I think is really cool because then you think of Alshon Jeffrey's contribution to this offense. Now, I could see this working beautifully if you have Alshon Jeffrey on the outside and Arcega-Whiteside on the outside because they're two big bodies who are great at going up and getting the ball and making tough catches. But that leaves the slot identity kind of shaky. Now, who are you going to throw in there? Nelson Aguilar, who's been super inconsistent, or you're going to give the young practice squad guy, Greg Ward, a few more reps? Now, I say that we give Greg Ward a few more reps just because with his limited snap count, he has stepped up to the plate and he has performed. But in a sense that Nelson Aguilar has been in the system a little bit longer, I wouldn't be surprised to see him back into action this week. But in my opinion, I feel like it should be Greg Ward in the slot, and Alshon Jeffrey, if healthy, should be playing on the outside with Arcega-Whiteside. In return, can open up a lot of plays on the field. Now, something I think the Eagles offense needs to do more of is incorporate the running backs more. Now, Jordan Howard, unfortunately, was out last week with a stinger, and you could see when Jordan Howard is not in this offense, the pacing is completely off. Because when Jordan Howard rushes for more than 100 yards, it seems like the Eagles tend to win a lot of games. And the backup in this offense is Miles Sanders. We drafted him for a reason. He is a versatile receiving threat, and if we could get him out of the backfield and hit him more, then a lot of these guys will be wide open. And even using him as a decoy out of the backfield can get players like Ertz wide open, and even somebody struggling like Aguilar wide open. Now, this all just isn't a matter of fact, and it can't just be fixed over one game. This is repetition. This is, a ton of reps in practice and all these sort of factors that go into the timing of an offense. But Carson Wentz needs to make better throws, and he needs to step up. Because if the balls aren't on the money and the wide receivers are doing their job, then it's just going to result in turnovers. Now, moving forward, I could see Miles Sanders being incorporated more heavily, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside being more incorporated, actually using him more because he's a great route runner and can get other people open. And if Alshon Jeffrey is back and healthy, I could see him being a major contributor to this offense like he was in our playoff runs in the past and, in our first Super Bowl. Now, if we look at the rest of the schedule, like I said, 8-36 against our remaining opponents. We do head over to Miami this Sunday to play a struggling Dolphins team. Now, I feel like this will be more of a confidence builder game, and I'm hoping that we could get some of our guys back who have been injured, but this should be a game that tells us who Carson Wentz really is and what our offense is going to bring to the table for the remaining games. Now, if we finish out strong, which I think we will, then we should be able to win this division. It also comes down to a different factor, a tiebreaker, where if the end of the division is decided by the Eagles and the Cowboys, which it will, the Eagles have beat the New York Jets and the Dallas Cowboys have lost to the New York Jets. So the Eagles have their destiny right in front of them, and if they could win out, then, it speaks for himself. But they are their own worst enemies at the end of the day, and you can only do so much but point fingers around this entire locker room. And, it's ultimately up to Carson Wentz to execute with the weapons that he has. Now, going into the future, what we will need to do in order to win out and make a playoff push is actually more simple than we all think. The wide receivers need to step up, they need to play better, and they need to get more reps at practice because you can't just expect to be thrown into the game and perform as well as you think. These reps need to be continuous. These reps need to be accurate, and timing is such a huge thing, and I'm going to say it once again, timing takes time. So once the Eagles offense gets used to the rhythm, and hopefully guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside step up in this offense with the lack of depth, and Miles Sanders becomes more of a contributor in this offense, this Eagles defense, this Eagles offense rather, can really make the most of the opportunities that the defense is presenting. Now, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants, the Washington Redskins, and the Dallas Cowboys are our remaining opponents. We do play the Giants twice, which will definitely be a different kind of matchup because it's not Eli Manning anymore. It's Daniel Jones, who's been actually performing above my expectations. I wasn't really a fan of him when the Giants drafted him and kind of laughed at it, but he's actually coming into quite a decent quarterback in the NFL. Saquon Barkley has been nursing an injury throughout the whole season, but he should be healthy when the Eagles play him. But we need to take one game at a time. The Eagles versus Miami Dolphins on Sunday, and fly Eagles fly. Let's get to it, and let's finish this season strong. At the end, I'm an Eagles fan till we die, win, loss, or tie, and I hope you guys are all too, and you have not lost faith in this football team. Happy Thanksgiving.